Hello, everyone. I am Rashaun Alleyne, and I'm joined by Kobia Hamblin. And welcome to Pillar to Post. And we're going to be recapping the Midsummer Creole Classic race day, which had a lot of eventful results, and life was great for some, and Kobia for others, it was not.
I agree with you, Rashawn. Saturday's race day, we expected to go one way. The rain came, and that was completely twisted. The outsiders had an absolute field day Saturday.
No, you're 100% right. And jumping right into it, like in the midsummer, the main race on the card, the feature, an outsider had their way with them. And as you see the results, Raconteur, Josiah, Valiant, Heidi Marie, I'm not sure if many, if anyone, saw it going this way. Raconteur clearly running away with the second leg of the jewel of the Triple Crown.
Much the best. As we would have expected, Saturday, the Midsummer Creole Classic was, as we saw it, a two-horse race, but this is why we love it, and this is what we call it the Sport of Kings. Anything can happen as long as you enter those starting gates. You have a chance, and this is proven to us over and over and over. If you look into the race, Valiant broke very sharply coming from the two box, and maybe him being so fresh, having not raced since Boxing Day, he was a bit keen to go on. But I saw Delano have him settle very early and allowed Heidi Marie to take the early fractions and go ahead with them. Josiah averagely placed right where we expected, and Raconteur was just about midfield, very calm and cool.
Yeah, I think no surprise. Like being drawn on the inside, coming off of a 6 month layoff, like Delano Lopez did what everyone expected and what he should have done, um, and send Valiant to the lead. I think he may have been a lot more dangerous if it were firmer. And let's remember, the rain had just poured a fresh set of waters on the track right before this race. As you mentioned, like Heidi Marie gets to the front after a couple of furlongs, and I think this did help Valiant as Delano Lopez was able to, get a breather while still maintaining some position. And what's of note by this point, like Josiah broke second. Josiah is dead last at this point, and I think this then goes into the part of the race where Josiah loses the race because he makes this middle move, as you're going to see him on the outside, and he's going to run all the way up to Valiant in third. And this is a middle move that we've seen time and time again. This is, vintage Josiah at this point. But what's under his feet, Kobia, don't allow this to be sustained. Doesn't allow this to be sustained.
I absolutely do agree. This is the average Josiah we've seen every start since the beginning. Makes that big move from the four to the two. But I think what was missing Saturday may have been a genuine pace setter to carry that a bit faster for him to run at. As we may see, Raconteur is behind horses, looking for somewhere to go. He now peeps out, and maybe he's on the better part of the track, but he just blasts by both Valiant and Josiah. There was never any competition for him.
Yeah, I think better part of the track is a big factor too, but Antonio Bishop was just so patient. There was so much unfolded in front of him. And with Valia, alternating positions with Heidi Marie and Josiah, breaking pretty well, falling back to second, and then making that middle move. Bishop just found this position early, held it, and then when it stayed into turned into a staying test, produced the last move. And the last move is always the best move. And I feel like Raconteur going in, we wonder as a no not again if he's going to stay. And my God, 5.25 lengths on a horse that people thought a few months ago would win the Triple Crown. Raconteur like passed that answer those questions, astoundingly. And I think what's to note, like going forward, as Nostradamus is about to return, hopefully for the Derby, Josiah came out in the midsummer with front wraps on for the first time, and I thought that was alarming. So we'll see how he and Valiant bounce out of this to take on, Nostradamus and Raconteur in the Derby. So that was a pretty thrilling second leg of the Triple Crown. And speaking of Triple Crown, that was the name of the eighth race, the supporting feature. It was after Triple Crown winner, the People's Champ Handicap. And it saw the return of the highly heralded Smoking Tea, who ran second in the Gold Cup for Chad Brown. So this was his first start for Edward Walker Jr.
Any questions that may have been asked of Smoking Tea have been answered with flying colors. Smoking Tea on an off track, like what we had Saturday, with 132 pounds, fighting the jockey for at least 6 of the 9 furlongs, and still having enough to dismiss the field. Brilliant performance.
No, yeah. First off, it's like we're all wondering who's going to be the speed, and then it's the goddess Nike, who we all assume was the slowest of them all. But with Ricky walking at 110 pounds in the one draw, I'm not surprised that he got her to the front. And as you said, Smoking T fighting Antonio Bishop, or Antonio Bishop fighting Smoking T, and he's a name we're going to mention because he won the two features. I thought he was definitely the fastest, but he ultimately got him to settle. And then it was just a matter of when he wanted to call on Smoking Tea, because this could not have been a better trip. Like, speed is not necessarily great on the day, but then you have Brilliant News, who is probably never going to give Smoking Tea eight lets and run him down. And then Zaid, who was never in contact and never showed that he loved the going.
I don't think Zaid liked anything about the going. It wasn't absolutely soft, but again, as you said earlier, a fresh coat of rain fell just before this rain ran. And who knows if that had some effect on Zaid, but he definitely didn't like it. Brilliant
Yeah,
News, the lone horse I expected to like it. He ran very well on this going, but the goddess Nike, as we said, there was no genuine pace in this race. And I thought, at least in my opinion, with 110 pounds, Ricky's best idea here is to try to collar this field. And
yeah.
somewhere, somehow, the amazing animal that I gave the field basically 22 pounds, told them, this is no contest.
Yeah,
I am
100%. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard for the goddess Nike, I feel like, to go out of what's good for her, and that's, closing, to leading what is the best horse in Barbados and then beating him. I think you mentioned the fresh coat of rain, and I must mention that this is the fourth 9 furlong race that's on the card. It was by far the fastest. He ran 201 and 4. The next fastest was race 2 with Malala in 202, which also raises eyebrows because that means Malala's race was faster than the Midsummer one race prior to Smoking Teas. And it's like, I feel after the fresh coat of rain, the track just got a lot worse and probably hindered how fast Rockland Tour could have won the Midsummer, which puts this race into so much more perspective and makes it more interesting and more impressive that Smoking Tea was able to win in such a time in 201. As you said, giving horses 20 plus pounds.
an absolute freight train. You would
No,
have
yeah, it's
thought.
gonna be
Go ahead.
no, it's gonna be exciting to see where this horse goes. As you said, he's a freight train and he's a pretty good animal. It's gonna be really exciting to see where he goes.
The question is to see how he's going to do against the other monsters that he calls stable mates. That's mainly going to be
Right.
his competition now.
Right, exactly. The company you keep might be the company that is your biggest adversary. So we talk about, facing other monsters, and we have to talk about the other big name on the card. Even though it wasn't a feature, it was the odds against handicap pretty early on the card, and Anissa, who myself, admittedly, thought was tied to the pole, and that's a prospector had other ideas.
Had other plans. This was her first time going on such a track with soft conditions. This was also, I believe, her first time not leading a race. This is her first time having to sit behind horses and be patient and rate. I can see where jockey tactics came into play here. Rene, by far the fastest horse, Major Dan quickly on his heels. And right here, I can see Anissa looking for a space to come through, and they're giving her an absolute hard time. They know if she
Yeah.
gets through, it's going to be hard to catch her. So we need to make life uncomfortable for her. At this point, around the 4 furlong pole, I see Jarrell decides, okay, y'all aren't letting me out. I'm going to take back and wait on a chance to circle. And just as he says that, Slade decides, no, 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 you got to come around me too. And I think
Yeah.
that was the pivotal part in this race.
So I'm not necessarily um of the belief that she can't rate. Again, she's had to rate, by the way. She rated in the spot and she rated against Nostradasa. But I think here, as we talk about the spa, for example, when the horses in front of her are pretty solid, she then has to work a lot harder than she's probably ever had to. I think my big thing with her, I've gained a lot of respect out of this race for her. I don't think she liked these conditions at all. As you see, like she finally gets to the good part of the trap when the race is over, and she warms up pretty well to finish second. Where at the quarter pole, she did not look like she was going to be the top three. And you make great mention of what Slade Jones was able to do down the hill, where he slipped in Nisa while she was still kind of spinning her wheels on the inside. I think Slade made that really decisive move to get 2, 3 lengths on Anissa, who by the time she got going, the race was over.
Anissa, the daughter of the speedy golden sense. The big question is, did conditions beat her, or is she now in a class where she has to give better than what she has before?
I mean, two things can be true. She's in a class where she has to get better than before, but I think ultimately, for such a lightly framed filly, maybe she wasn't getting over the ground as well as she would a firmer track. And I think for me, seeing how she finished up, I thought she finished second on pure class, as they would say, pure ability. I think had this been a firmer track, she would have been. I'm an Lisa apologist at this point. I think she's a lot better than this second show, but I found that out because she finished second here. But I think a really good ride from Slade, don't you think?
Okay, with all I've said about the ride on Dancing Prospector, I must give it. This was definitely my ride of the day. No questions asked. Slade Jones, that's a clap in my book.
Yeah. And I think it was 100% a really good ride. For me, I'd have to say my ride of the day was Delano Lopez on Double Juice, the 3-0 maiden a little earlier in the card. And the first thing is that the biggest competitor to Double Juice, Mystique, stood in the gates. Just latch was sprung, and she was like, "What am I doing here? Oh, racing!" And then she just jumped. And we always talk about these races where these horses are young. Mystique is pretty experienced, and she just kind of threw it away at the start. But Double Juice to me was pretty impressive, and Lopez had a big part to play with that. Usually, I wouldn't commend the rider for being four wide into the first turn, but again, the conditions just completely changed on the day, and the inside with all the rain and all the water settling to the inside was not the place you wanted to be. Like you see Octavia Sienna down on the inside and Tiptoe not far off the rails, and they were nowhere at the end. I mean, Mystique and Charisma also hit the board, but well, Mystique was off the board, but she was down on the inside, so that shows you. But if you look at Double Juice here, like she's on the better part of the track, and she's now past her competitors that would probably challenge her, like Elevate, who's going to be second, Champagne, and Mystique. She made that move, well, Lopez made that move, and I think that's what made it the ride of the day for me. Where now he's already come to the front, and his biggest competitors are left reeling, trying to go with him, and putting this horse, who is by John Bryan, out of where she went into the race so early on such a good part of the track. She's gonna relish the going. She's going to stay, and you made that move. I think it was so decisive, and it was he's still being intentional about where he is right now on the best part of the track. I just think this was a very cerebral ride by Lopez, and you see Elevate might be finishing better, but because of the move you made pretty early to get the jump on that
Slipped in
one, when
early
you're
and
on
got
the
rid of.
yeah, exactly, when you're on the better part of the track, it just, in my opinion, Lopez was the difference here, and the filly broke her maiden very impressively. Very excited to see what she does going forward, but for me, Lopez on Double Juice was the ride of the day. I give credit to Slade on Dancer Prospector and a little nod to what Bishop did on Raconteur, but I really enjoyed what Lopez did. So that was Midsummer Day Kobia. It was quite an evening. Again, sheltering from the rain, and then favorites falling left and right. And now we just wait 4 more weeks until the Derby, one more leg of the Triple Crown. I think for me, it's just amazing to see how when races are run versus how they're set up on paper. Because after Gold Cup Day, you think, okay, well, when we get to this time, we're going to be talking about how Josiah has won two legs and a leg for the Triple
Yep, and
Crown.
is vying for the Triple Crown. And look at us now.
Right.
Josiah hasn't won any of the two legs, second
Has
in
not
both.
won.
And the
Right.
question is, can he turn around his form and run first in the Derby? Can he win the Derby? Is Valiant a better shot in the Derby? At the end of the day, he only beat Valiant for second place by a nose. And then you have 11 other possible horses that are also in with a shot, as Raconteur would have showed in the Midsummer. We also
Right.
have some new
Exactly.
faces. We have Nostradamus returning. We have the new entrant of Double Deuce coming into the Derby.
Right. It's gonna be very interesting because now has he lost a little bit of credit where again you go from a Triple Crown winner to what, a three-time classic runner-up. Like what is he gonna do in the
Yeah.
Derby? It's gonna be a lot of conversation for the next 4 weeks, and it's gonna be very interesting to see what Josiah and all the others have done. Again, we want to give that respect to Rafator. He's now a classic winner. Valiant, huge off the bench. Nostradamus is undefeated in the Triple Crown, and Josiah is looking for even more redemption, Kobia. So, you can stay tuned to the Pillar to Post. We will have all that previews for you here. And again, for Kobia Hamlin, I am Rashaun. Alleyne, thank you for tuning in, and may all your tickets be winning ones.
Thank you.